Hello and welcome to episode 70 of Flesh and Pod. I am your host Logan, and with me, as always, is Darick. Darick, what did you get up to in Flesh and Blood this week?
Well, my local armory was canceled just because there was a bunch of folks traveling. So I spent the majority of my time trying to film box openings, but then life kept interrupting, and that was causing some problems. Some folks in my household were diagnosed with COVID, and obviously I'm still like one-armed for a bit. So it's been weird, but I got through one of my 3 cases thus far. Second YouTube video went up today for the second box. I'm just going to do a video per box because that's about 20 minutes a pop. And no spoilers, but this first case was saved by like a single pull because the rest of the case was not very good. So, you'll have to watch all the videos to find out what it was that saved my case. But that's the majority of what I did in Flesh and Blood this week, just because of like I said, health issues. Even though I've been fine. So like my wife tested positive for COVID, but she actually got it while I was in Chicago. So I was fighting from being sick the week before, losing my voice, and then I come home to her having COVID. But I have tested negative all 3 times now, and I feel fine. So dodged that bullet, but was playing medic for a bit. And I didn't want to travel to events because even though I was testing negative, I just like to be careful, and I don't want to be responsible for other people getting sick. So anyway, just opening stuff. That's what I got up to.
Yeah. And I did watch box 1, and that was a fucking travesty.
That was the worst box I have ever opened. I wish that was hyperbole, but it was awful.
It was bad. It was very, bad. Very bad. So I did not play my normal Thursday because it was opening day of the baseball season. And you may or may not know that I am a very large baseball fan. You could tell by the Cubs batting jersey I'm currently wearing.
I didn't know. You've actually never mentioned baseball to me
Not
before.
once, right?
Yep. Shocked.
Never talked about it on the show ever or anything else. Did not go to Arizona to watch 9 baseball games, very recently.
This makes a lot of sense because the few times that like you and I have traveled together, you do watch A League of Their Own every night and fall asleep to it. And now I've put 2 and 2 together. So
it's a great movie.
It is fantastic.
If it's Bull Durham, if it's Bull Durham, I can't go to sleep. I have to watch the whole thing and then watch it again. So I can't start that train. But so Thursdays, opening day, I treat as a national holiday. If I work a half day. Anybody that tries to schedule anything post an hour before the first pitch, I tell them to kind of go fuck themselves. And I take off work. I've been going to the same bar for 6 years now. Ever since it opened, I just randomly stumbled upon it the first opening day that they were open. And I'm like, okay, well, this is new, so maybe there won't be a lot of people. And I can just post it up the bar all day. And ever since, for every opening day, I have gone to that same bar outside of 2020 where nothing was open. And so I went and did that. Saturday, I played my normal Saturday armory, which was Outsiders Draft. Drafted Arachne. It was fine. It was a very fair Arachne deck. That was about it. We did pop open some packs. I've opened 3 Vambraces now, which feels awful. Because I only have 2 arms, and I don't need a third one, and none of them are cold foil. They're all rainbow foil pieces of shit. So that sucks, but it's as much as it sucks to open a legendary, let's put it that way. And then do it multiple times. I was gifted a box by one of the LGSs because I guess for what I do, I don't know. But that was very nice, and I had Vambrace in it, and then a buddy of mine who had just gotten to the game, he went and bought a box of Uprising while I was sitting there, because he's like, okay, so what's the best thing to open? I'm like, if you want fun, it's Uprising. Uprising is one of the most fun sets I've ever encountered to open. Because there's just dragons. Left to right cool shit. There's dragons. There's cards that have held value. The legendaries are impactful if they're not named Ghostly Touch. There's
just like the extended art commons and whatever that you can get are fun.
Yep. And out of this box, he ended up pulling a Marvel Icelander and a Marvel Ashwing.
Wow.
Or not Ashwing, Phoenix Flame. Not the Ashwing, but the Marvel Phoenix Flame and the Marvel Icelander out of one box, and then also there, I think there was a foil erase face, a double strike, a few. I think two of the three majestic dragons. It was just like, sure,
So not what I opened for my first box.
no,
Of
absolutely
Outsiders.
not. That no, this was very, very good, and so it's always good to get more people in the game, to get new people in the game. And he's a very close friend of mine, who he's good at breaking shit as far as games goes. So always pointing those types of people at a game and seeing what they can do is very interesting, because it tells you kind of what you need to know. I've always thought of Flesh and Blood to be sort of closer to a board game feel in a lot of ways, just because of the hero nature, the hero selection nature. It feels mechanically like it has some board game elements like equipment. So it's just like it's always had a little bit of that to me. And so pointing board game people at the game to see how they do is often very interesting and very enlightening. The armory was actually won by Katsu. Sure. It was one of the filthiest Katsu decks I'd seen, though. Like, it was a
I mean,
lot.
once you go to draft, I think Katsu is very viable in this set.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was a very well drafted deck. And it took it down, and it was just like, damn, that's. I mean, if you get it, you get it. And the Mask of Shifting Perspectives just is so good to just string together an absurd turn that, okay, that's very good. You would probably not necessarily win against a Riptide that's fully trapped, but okay. So yeah, that was my week. And then so I was going to play 36 holes of golf today, but prudence got the better of me after standing on a tee box with a 22-mile-an-hour crosswind, and decided to only play 18. But it was actually, it was a good 18. I actually, for the first time in 10 years, give or take, decided to really just lay into a ball to see if I've recovered enough, or I've from torn menisci. Menisci, is that the plural of meniscus?
It might
What's
just be meniscus, like is both singular.
meniscus? Or just maybe, I don't know. What the fuck? Okay, so like I think it's the plural of nope, not gonna do that one. So it's like labia. The
It is
plural of labia is labia,
it is
right?
menisci.
It is menisci. Okay, cool.
It is.
We looked it up. Okay.
I looked it up.
So we fact check ourselves on this show, except for when we don't. The ever since I tore the menisci out of my knee, I have not been too keen on just trying to swing super hard and post up through my legs and generate the kind of power I needed. But the crosswind, I was like, fuck it, and just let fly, and through the crosswind still managed to shove a 280, 285 drive out there, dead nuts on the fairway. And I'm like, okay, I can do this again, because that would be nice if I can do this again. And then put one on the green on my second shot putting for eagle, and then I 3-putted for par. But sometimes, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't line up. And we took that, though. So it was good to get back out there and take some swings, but I'm sore as fuck now. Like, I'm old, man. I know that you're sitting there jealous with a torn bicep, wishing you could do anything active with your arms.
My left knee also has a torn meniscus that's just slowly fraying, and I also have a torn hamstring on that leg. So I'm just envious of anything physical right now.
Yeah, that's a good luck coming through any ball. Yep, gonna leave it. Good luck coming through any ball with a tore up leg like that. Very Shane McMahon leg is what you have.
I know. I have a Shane McMahon leg, and I've got, I don't even know who like would have one arm at this point, but that's me.
The drummer from Def Leppard. He
only
has one arm.
The dude from, what is it, 72 Hours or whatever, but
also that. But I think we're going to go. You are currently a combination of Shane McMahon and the drummer from Def Leppard. That's who you are right now. It is not good in the land of Darick Oswald when it comes to physical malady, but he's still going to brave it and come to Baltimore, and we'll both be there.
Yeah,
it'll be fun.
so so that's the one thing that I'm like waiting to hear. So I'm like crossing my fingers for tomorrow, because we're recording this on a Sunday, which is that um I'm hoping that they schedule my surgery, assuming that I need one, sooner rather than later, because I don't want them to tell me that it's going to be like that week, because
Or
otherwise,
tell them to push it back a week.
well, no, because what'll happen is like I will still come out. I will just not perform well at the calling because I'll probably be like high on painkillers, but
You might perform better. I mean, performing
maybe.
enhancing drugs have been doing great for people for years. You never know. I mean, I might get fucked up on mushrooms just to find out. Like, being hungover hasn't done me any good, so let's try something else. Like, that's used to be that being hungover maybe way better at card games. Fuck, that is not the case anymore. Whew,
Yeah.
I am forever bad now.
In my late teens and early 20s, I played my best Magic when I would not get any sleep the night before.
Mm-hmm.
So I would stay up with the testing group basically all night jamming games, and then go straight to the tournament, with the idea being that all of the testing would just turn on autopilot, and then I would just not think, because I would just be doing what I'd been doing for hours. And then it would take away any ability to like second guess myself, whether it came to like mulligans or lines. I seriously, I always perform my best back then by doing so. Now there's no way I could do that now. I would just fall asleep at the table.
No.
But
Yeah, the best I ever did at a Magic tournament was at an SCG in 2011. So we're talking, I was in my early 30s, and I went out that Halloween night with my wife, and we went hard, like hard. And a buddy of mine who is now a very good friend, who had just really met, was like, okay, I'm going to leave F&M, and then give me your address. I'm like, I'll leave the door unlocked. Just come in and crash on the couch. I don't know what time I'll be home. I get home at like 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, and his car's not there. I'm like, fuck yes. I don't have to get up and do this shit. That's amazing. I'm like, okay, I'm going to set my alarm for, 6 or whatever, just in case. So at 6 or 5:30 or whatever it was, alarm goes off. I groggily walk downstairs, and there he is on my couch. I'm like, fuck. All right. Okay. Slap myself awake, take a shower. Let's go. We stopped at a gas station for a donut and a Diet Mountain Dew, and that was the only things I had consumed for the entire day going into top 8. That was it. And when we started driving, we got about an hour into the drive heading towards Kansas City, and I went, we'd been talking and chatting, and we're getting along great. And I was like, okay, so I think I can be honest here. So when we left, I'm pretty sure I was still drunk. And he's just like, oh, I'm like, are you okay now? I'm sober now, but it was touch and go. And he's like, okay, well, thank you for still going, I guess. I'm like, oh yeah, no problem. And then as the rounds and the day wore on, they were literally parading me around the room to keep my blood flowing, so I didn't sit down after a round and just pass the fuck out, because I would have. And then I wound up actually conceding in the top 4 of that tournament so I could go home and get some sleep. That's how that all worked out. But enough about old Magic stories and being an idiot drunk when I'm still an idiot drunk. What am I talking about? We do have a giant Premier Play announcement that just happened. They added a calling and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 battle hardens to the schedule. We will be getting the rest of 2023 Premier Play in Baltimore. They'll be releasing the entire schedule for the entire year. So that's great to hear. It'll be nice to know when and where Worlds is, when and where Nats is, all those things. So feeling very good about that. But we have quite a few things here. We're just going to kind of run them down what they are. So first we have the calling in Singapore, which is not, sadly, I will not be in Singapore. Would love to go to Singapore, but knowing that's 2 months out, that's definitely not enough lead time. But that's okay. It's a classic constructed event run by Fable Events, who I think have run stuff before. But the one thing about these announcements that I thought was really interesting is we got art that was new in these announcements.
They kind of like snuck it in.
They really did. And some of it is absolutely, if you're a lore person, or even if you're just trying to speculate on what's going to be happening, some of this is fucking nuts. So the Singapore art that's out there, it looks like Shiana and Prism, and the Prism is ascending to be a herald.
Yeah, I think that's
Is
a. I'm gonna be honest. So I'm gonna be Darick Downer.
I
Okay.
love being Darick Downer. I love Darick Downer. He's my favorite person.
I I look at this thing, and while I hate ruining people's hype, because I have heard so many people excited for this like particular piece of art, and I've heard some wild theories, right? I've heard everything from like this is Dorinthia to this is Shiana, this is new Prism. Like I've heard a bunch of
It's
stuff.
very clear that on the left is Shiana and on the right is Prism. Those are the two characters. It's I think that that's pretty easily understood. That's Shiana's
Yeah,
crown, like 100% Shiana's crown, and that definitely looks like Prism's robes.
we might not be talking about the same piece of art then, because I'm talking about. Let me
Are you talking
pull
about
it
the
up.
warrior?
The warrior one.
That looks like
I
Dorinthia to me.
see, that's just it. I've heard everything from like people say Dorinthia. I've heard people say Kasai because of the belt and some of the
The
other
sash,
things.
sure.
Yeah, I I have seen a lot of different things about that one, and unfortunately, I think that one's just a herald. Like I look at
Yeah,
the art, I see the crown,
the one
and
the one I'm talking about is not that.
yeah, I was trying to pull them up. So what's interesting is when I go to the premiere play announcement now, at least
It's
on
in
their
this like.
website.
Oh, that's not it. Don't click on that.
Yeah, I know, I know. It's on Twitter is where it's supposed to be with all the art pieces. But when I go to the other one, they left that out. That's all very interesting to me.
The warrior one
No,
or the
just
prism
like
one?
all of the art in general. Like they just use like pictures of the city or whatever.
Oh, it has both. You have to scroll down in the announcement. But there's the good link. But yeah, this is Shiana and Prism, and it looks like they're like ascending. Like it looks like Shiana is. It looks like Prism's becoming an illusion, and Shiana's transforming. I could also see Prism becoming the Gemini. Um, it's very interesting everything that's going on there.
Yeah. So the one that you're talking about with the piece of the calling art or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, um, I I was taking this personally as this was Shiana shapeshifting to look like Prism. Because the one side is like very ethereal and transparent, but the other side, the Shiana side, is solid, even where the illusionary parts are. To me, it just looks like it's also like the pieces that are like illusory on the Prism side are the ones that are solid on the Shiana side. So to me, this was like she was looking at an illusion or a picture of Prism and was just shape shifting to match.
Could be. I just think it's
That
very interesting art in
it's a
general.
great piece of art. Like, and one of the things that I always look for whenever I see splashes of art like this are placement, because this, for example, would make a wonderful mat because the centerpieces of the characters would be where it's most visible, right? You got your decks
Yep.
on the left and the right. So that's something I'm always looking for. So when I saw this, I was like, oh, this is going to be a mat at some point. Like it's too good not to
Yeah,
be.
it's
But
too
yeah, I
gorgeous.
took this as this was like Shiana shape shifting to look like Prism.
Yep. And I could see that too. Also, because it looked like Prism had wings, and that made me think Herald, since she's rather obsessed with the Heralds. Like that's just part of her
Yeah.
thing. But I think all in all, it's very interesting, and I'm just happy to have more Shiana around. I think that she's just an interesting character to have in a story, and what happens with her is going to probably be very, very, very interesting. The warrior art, it looks like a card to me, just like not necessarily anything. It doesn't look like a hero card
Yeah,
or
it
hero art to
looks
me.
like a herald to me personally.
Yeah, and if you want to just ascend Dorinthia to being a herald, fine, go for it. It's not. It does not look like Kasai to me at all. And
Yeah, people were just mentioning it, I think, because of the sash, like the
yeah,
apparel. It's so
I don't
funny
think
because
so.
I've seen so much focus on that. So if you're, you know, into that, like I get it. But to me, like I want to know more about some of these other art pieces. Because there's the one that's like the Hydra that looks like it's like
Oh yeah,
spitting poison. Again, quality matte because the centerpiece is not where the decks would be. But also it's just not like any other like creature we've seen art
right.
wise. It doesn't look like a dragon. I mean, it could be a dragon, but
It
it's
could be a dragon.
multi-headed, right? And the thing has like beaks. To me, it's almost like a Hydra cockatrice, mix. But just like really cool art. And so like I was very interested in that. The one I think is Urser that's like
Oh, it's Urser.
yeah, that's also got good matte vibes, again, very centered, but just like bringing
Yeah.
destruction.
My note on
Big
that one is
fan.
art is 100% Urser breaking shit. Is
Yeah,
my
yeah,
note for
yeah.
that one because
Yeah.
that's what's happening.
I mean, that's what's happening. Very clear. But then not what I think would be quality matte, because I think the centerpiece stuff is going to be covered most of the time, but the one where it's definitely a person and there's just like all the rune chants around,
Yeah,
looks really, really cool.
and they're
And
blue
then,
rune chants, which is weird.
yeah, there were blue rune chants, which is a little bit different. And then the other one, which looks like it is Solana, right?
It
Because of
is
the
Solana.
banner,
Mm-hmm.
going through, you know, somebody let all the ghosts out from Ghostbusters. But that one, I just like that art in general. Like, one, I can't wait to see whatever this card is in foil, because with the moon and the red vibes, like this card's going to look outstanding. I would be fine with this one being a matte, because even though the structure is at the bottom, you still get big like demon folks in that giant
Yeah,
ass moon. Like, I don't know what this does, but like I'm all for this card, whatever it is already. Like, it's very,
that
very
is
cool.
lore wise. That is looks like it's the portal that goes to the demonastery has been cracked open. So
Yeah,
Irithol or whatever, and
I can never say it right,
it's
but yeah.
whatever it is, and it's just coming all over Solana. That came out exactly as I intended, and so it it looks like this is going to be really cool. There's also um there's the for the Battle Hardened Baltimore, which is June 16th through 18th. The art looks to be like a battle map.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Always forget about that one. Yeah, well, it's either a map or, I mean, it looks like a map because there's like figures on it and it's like a table and there's very clearly lines. But it's also interesting because everyone standing around has their sword out. So I took this as it could have been a battle map, but whatever the art is also could be like a treaty or a joining forces or something, right? Like,
Mhm.
think of this as the flesh and blood version of you have my sword and my axe and my bow, right?
And
But
the
yeah,
mass
like
figure is
that
probably
one's
Shiana, right?
interesting.
The mass figure is probably Shiana, right?
I mean, it could be, but the interesting bit is like we have so many masks now in the game. Like, that could also just
That's
be
true.
anybody else. Because everybody in this piece of art to me feels like a warrior. Like, they all have
Hmm.
like armor on. So I don't know.
Yeah, and then obviously because it's in Baltimore and it's in June and it's
Team
not that
sealed,
yet. Fuck, of course it's team sealed.
right?
I look, it is definitely tempting me and my soul for how far I will travel for a team sealed battle hardened because I I want to. I very
Yeah,
much so want to. Why can't this be in like indie? Would have been great. Would have loved it.
yeah. If this was drivable, it would be like a no-brainer. My
Snap on
biggest issue is that it's either overlaps with directly or it's incredibly close to. I have to look at the dates again, but I
the
know it's near
origins.
Origins.
Yep. That is
So
also part of my problem.
that is
So
that is also part of my problem.
yeah, it's already bad enough how I'm gonna have to like organize Gen Con if I'm going to try to make the Salt Lake City a realm event.
Well, so right now my biggest concern is that I have vacation days. And so whenever I work gigs, I use my vacation days usually to cover my travel days. And I have X number of days stored up and X number of things already planned for travel, like the first trip to Baltimore for the Pro Tour, and Pittsburgh is in May, and there's Gen Con in August, et cetera, right? So like I have all these things that I know I'm going to need to use days for. And now I've been thrown this other complication of like, if I need surgery, and again, while I haven't heard 100%, I probably won't find out till tomorrow. I'm operating under the assumption based on the description that I'm going to need it. I don't know how many days I'm going to have to take off for that. Like minimum 1 for the surgery, probably at least the day after. But after that, it's kind of hard to tell, right? So adding more to my calendar when I already have X number of days eaten up is
Not
an
great.
issue.
Yeah.
But I really want to go to the Team Sealed.
I really want to play Team Sealed. Like, that's by far my favorite format, and it's not particularly close. My mouse has just lost its mind. Okay. That was interesting. Okay. Well, I guess I'm operating like this now. There we go. I don't know, like, is it worthwhile going for Team Sealed to Baltimore? Maybe? Like, maybe?
I mean, Baltimore's a pretty like cheap flight and stay, which is the other temptation. Like if this was in New York or something, then I'd be like, all right, well, I definitely can't do it. But like it's weird. Like Baltimore's just like right on the cusp. Like if this was in driving range, I'd say okay, probably. If it was expensive, I would say like hard pass. But this is like right on the line. I think right now for me the biggest issue is literally just going to be related to health. So do I have the vacation?
Yeah.
How am I feeling by then? Because I'm already going to have to travel a few times before then, like while I'm likely recovering. So I don't know. We will see.
Yeah, and that's an issue in and of itself, right? Like, for me, travel days are. I can do a lot of work from home shit, and that's nice. Like, I do enjoy it, and it makes it so that things get a little bit easier. I think I've just literally killed my mouse. That's great. And so that's wonderful, but at the same time, it's like anything else, right? Like, I wish these were callings that probably would motivate me more. I'm not saying that it would 100% motivate me to do these things, but I guess you never know. But yeah, there's also that one's NSCG Con, which for some people that might be a selling point. For me, it's kind of the opposite.
I'm indifferent if I'm being honest. Like I don't think one way or the other. So like part of the other issue as well is that, so I have the health stuff and the vacation days and all of that, but then as far as like attendance goes, there are 2 other ones that are in driving distance, right? So if I do want to go to the others as well, because there's Columbus and Chicago.
Yeah, and I'm looking at Cincinnati potentially too, even though
I've driven to Cincinnati before.
I don't mind that drive.
That one's kind of hard for me. The last time I did that, I had a good friend of mine, so Cosmic, if you're somebody who follows Battle Spirit Saga, he also used to play Flesh and Blood, so he rode down with me and kept me awake and sane because long car rides are an issue for me. So shout out to Matt, I love you, but doing that solo might be rough. I don't know, we'll see.
Yeah, I think Chicago's probably the easiest of those for me to make. Just
that's
because
the easiest for me as well.
Yeah, from Des Moines, it's only 4.5 hours. Like,
I mean,
so for some people, they're hearing that and panicking, but for me, it's just like, yeah.
I mean, okay. For me, I would guarantee, I would say I'm 100% in for Chicago if I was being hired for coverage. So,
sure.
If anybody at MinMax is listening, what's up?
Yes, that one is hosted by MinMax Games.
I had fun. I had fun at the last event, and I can be available.
Yeah, and again, it's for me personally. I'm sort of just I'm not they're battle hardens. And so I guess I kind of want to address this where I, maybe wrongly so, looked at, from a Magic background, looked at callings as Grand Prix. Like that was my own personal, like, okay, this is if I'm translating one-to-ones, right? Like if I'm
Yeah.
saying this is X, this is Y, a Grand Prix is a calling. And maybe that was the intention of battle hardens, right?
So, I mean, it's possible. This is what I chose to do because I was originally doing the same thing for my first like year. I was like, okay, callings are like Grand Prix. And then there was a different side of me that like yelled at myself. And so for those of you who don't know, I do more than just card games and I do esports coverage and so forth as well. And when Valorant first came out, I actually did a lot of Valorant coverage.
Really? I
was
didn't actually know that one.
Yeah, I was for like 3 or 4 months, I was doing a bunch of Valorant broadcasts. Now everything was like grassroots community level at that point.
Sure.
But I did like some decent sized broadcasts and I got to work with a lot of talent who went on to do good things. But one of the things that used to frustrate me when Valorant first launched was that all of the feedback from the community, as far as like Valorant talent and casters and whatever, and how the broadcasts were, etc., everything was like, hey, they do it this way in this other game I like, and I want you to do it this way. And because you're not, like, I dislike your broadcast. And the problem is you had a bunch of people coming from different games, so none of the feedback was the same. So you had people who were coming from like Rainbow Six Siege, you had people obviously coming from Counter-Strike, then we had some folks from like Overwatch, Apex Legends. So basically like any team-based shooter, it attracted a lot of folks. Valorant was a big game, especially, I mean, it still is now, but at launch, there was a lot of outside interest. And so whenever you would have a broadcast and then you'd go to look for feedback, it was like, I wanted you to be, more quiet here to build suspense. And then somebody who's from a different game would be like, I wanted this to be an exciting shoutcast moment, right? So there was no like coherent feedback. And at some point when I was doing that coverage, I just said, you know what? I'm going to stop looking at that because Valorant's its own thing and we should just like make the standard for this game, right? This is not Counter-Strike. If you want to watch Counter-Strike, go watch Counter-Strike. And so I had that like kind of, come to Cthulhu moment myself after about a year of Flesh and Blood, where
Spaghetti Monster, whatever.
Yeah. Where I was just like, I keep trying to compare this to like other games I've played in the past. Obviously, Magic's the big one because it is the big one. But just in general, I was comparing it to a lot of games. I was like, no, like Flesh and Blood's its own thing. I got to stop thinking of this is a Grand Prix, this is a PTQ, this is a whatever, and just this is a calling. And how much weight do I personally put on a calling? This is a battle hardened, this is a skirmish, this is a whatever. How much weight do I personally put on it in its own Flesh and Blood vacuum? And that worked out very well for me as far as deciding what I wanted to put emphasis on. And then the other thing that came from that, and I think that this is like the big one for me, is that what I ended up deciding was the highest rate of return for me was actually how many of my friends are showing up. As weird as that sounds.
Yeah, no, you're
right.
No, I totally get it.
I didn't qualify for the Pro Tour this time, but I'm absolutely going to be in Baltimore. Why? Mm-hmm. Because most of my friends are going to be there. So I was like, you know what? I'll go out for the calling. It wasn't because it was a calling or even because it was the Pro Tour. It was literally, I've got, I don't know how many, but let's just say hypothetically, I got like 20 friends that I really like spending time with that play this game. And if, 15 of 20 are going to this event, well, like that's a can't miss event in my mind. You know what I mean? So just trying to think of things just as Flesh and Blood, right? Just give this game its own identity. I don't know. It just really helped for me. That's a long-winded tangent, but like it actually helped me a lot.
Dude, like, are you fucking kidding? Have you heard some of the tangents I've gone on? That ain't shit.
No, actually, I haven't because my eyes glaze over and
you just disassociate completely and just let me cook. That's great. What a bad fucking idea, by the way. But so I guess my question, how do you weigh the events in a vacuum?
So for me personally, the things that I put the most emphasis on. So again, this is part of what I went through. I was like, okay, like what's actually important to me, right? Because I work full time. I'm also trying to make content. I obviously want to cast events as well. So
You're a
first and
parent.
foremost, yeah, I'm a parent, a husband, father, whatever, right? So it's how do I make sure that this is like worth my time? So first and foremost, if you hire me, I will show up, right? At that point, like I'm a man of my word. I believe in like my contracts, etc. I will do everything I can to provide the best show possible. And end statement. After that, because like I know I'm not Michael Hamilton or whatever, I don't really judge it based on like EV. For me, it's the next thing is what is the amount of enjoyment that I am going to get from this in all likelihood, and then also what is the cost to me. So anything within driving range or where flights are cheaper or more attractive, just because it costs less. The less
Yeah.
money I spend on travel, the more money I can spend on cards. Like, let's just be honest. But also, again, so like, how many people do I know are going? If it's going to be me and two other people, and one of them is casting. So like, let's say it's like me and two people, but one of them is Flake, and he's going to be working the whole time. It's like, well, I'm going to be bored, right? Um, so how many people are going? What's the travel cost? Whatever. And then the other thing, as weird as it sounds, more so than is it a calling? Is it whatever? Is the format. So for me, like Team Sealed is very attractive. Draft, if you have a draft event, I will go out of my way to play in those more. So like during the last Road to Nationals last year, when they had some that were draft, some that were constructed, I drove further to get to draft events,
Mm-hmm.
and I put a greater emphasis on them just because I enjoyed the format more, right? So that to me, that's that. What is my enjoyment, ratio, and how much effort am I willing to put into it? And that's it, because I've realized that at this stage of my life, like part of the reason I play Flesh and Blood is because I love the game, and it is a game, and I'm doing it to have fun and enjoy myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I built my new rubric on, right? I just
Sure.
kind of balance it on that. And it's weird. It sounds like that's such a like, well, that's obvious, but it's not, because as somebody who did play Magic like semi-competitively a lot, in my teens and early 20s, everything was EV, right? And
Oh
sometimes I would
yeah.
go to
Oh
events.
yes. Ooh.
Sometimes I would go to events and I would not play, and I would just like be a binder hawk, right? And like buy and sell and
Mm-hmm.
whatever. The entire everything was like economy driven, and I got out of trading card games, like physical trading card games, specifically because I got tired of doing that. And so when I
Being the
got
binder
back into
grinder.
them,
Yeah.
yep. So when I got back into it, what I promised myself was that, to me, I wasn't going to play stock market simulator. I was going to play the game. And so I don't want to chase things down. This is why I'm bad about getting you lists, Logan. Like, I know there's cards I need, but the moment I start doing that, there's like this weird aversion on my end, because I'm just like, I just want to enjoy the game, right? That's my
Yeah.
emphasis.
No, I totally get it.
That's my thing. So
And for me, so if I'm going to do this in a vacuum, so like the odds of me traveling for a skirmish are roughly zero. Um, I'm just, I don't know. Like there's something about, especially like a blitz one, right?
yeah,
It if it's limited, you have my attention just because I love playing limited. But it almost feels like I don't know what I'm playing for, you know?
sure. I mean, I hear you, but now let me just throw you the hypothetical. What if it's a skirmish run by the realm, and you know that also is going to be there is like me, Flake, Dalen, Jordan,
Sure. Like
Mara,
right, which is
right? You know
why I
what I mean?
approach this in a vacuum.
Well, but that's why I'm saying, like, to me, that's what I was putting the weight on, right? Is like, well,
Yeah,
who's
no,
gonna be
right.
there? What's the event? Like,
Like if Tommy Dong is like, "Hey, I'm gonna be in Baltimore for this Outsiders team." See, I'm trying to do the New Jersey accent. I just can't do it because
yeah,
he's it's so perfect, so choice. Uh, if he says, hey, I'm gonna go to this, I'm gonna go to this Battle Harden in Baltimore. You show up. I'll be like, yeah, great, sounds awesome. Like sign me the fuck up, I guess.
yeah,
And yeah, you're right. Like Battle Hardens to me, I try to keep within driving distance if I can. If it's but you're right. Like if honestly, if Keith and or if Jacob and Keith and the realm threw uh a 1K in Saskatchewan, I'd probably try to find a way to be there. Like
yeah. Well,
that's
and
why
this
I'm
is
doing the
I was just gonna say this is my problem, because Flake and Nick Bolas, my good friend No Control, aka
Mikey.
Mike, aka like Casino,
Yeah, Casino
Rain
Royale.
Man, yeah,
Yeah.
Casino Royale. They want me to be the third for the team sealed, and I really want to go. I just got to figure out if I'm going to even have like the vacation days and the time for the overlap. I got.
Oh, so I don't have a team. Okay, cool. That sounds great.
Well, I mean, you weren't
Now
going
I
to
know
go
how Abby
anyway.
feels. The maybe I didn't need to do that. But
oh,
the yeah, it's a for so we have our, I wouldn't call what we have as a group, right? Because it's a big I hate using this term because it's just a political term, but it makes sense here. It's a big umbrella and everyone's welcome. Like we're a group, but we're not insular. Like, you want to hang out? Hang out. No one's gonna say otherwise. Don't, like, our rules are simple. Don't be a piece of shit. That's it. Or if you're a piece of shit, be at least an entertaining piece of shit, which is kind of my groove. But the very specific pieces of this are my hierarchy is almost identical to yours. In reality, it's who's going to be there. Like the people that I enjoy and love and want to be around all the time, that moves it up the list. Is it reachable easily? That moves it up the list. Is it a format I want to play? That moves it up the list. But there is some stock put into who's running it. And that does change things too. Like, I don't really enjoy SCG Con. I mean, they're going for something, and it seems like they're just really good at missing it. And that's not the thing you want to be good at. If you're trying to accomplish something, you should probably be focused on accomplishing the thing and not throw shit at the wall and see what sticks, which is kind of their approach. So yeah, I mean, like, to your point about the whole, your friends are showing up at the a realm event thing. Like, my Gen Con right now is drive to Indy on Wednesday, do Gen Con Thursday, Gen Con Friday, catch a red eye from Indianapolis to Salt Lake City, do Salt Lake City Saturday, Sunday, fly back Monday. And I'm just saying, I'm just going, yep, okay, fine, whatever. Fucking kill me, I guess. Like, I don't need to be alive. It's fine. But that's because I'm trying to fit it all in.
right.
I'm trying to put a dog in the bathtub here. And I'm willing to do that because of what you just said, because of it's a battle hardened, but it's a realm battle hardened. And Flake is casting. And there
You
are
know who else is going to be there?
Brendan
Tannen
Patrick.
Grace.
Is he?
He is.
Okay, well, I'm not going now. That's great. There's enough trash in my life. I don't need another can of it. But love you, Tannen. But is it really Tannen, Flake, and Brendan?
I don't want to like speak out of turn because I don't know what's all been locked in. I just know that that Tannen has been mentioned in some of the discussions that I've heard, and that I am definitely out for that one as I take my son to Gen Con for the first time because he's turning 10 this year, and we're gonna have fun. So yeah, I don't know for sure if it'll be Flake, Tannen, and Brendan, but the last I heard, it was pretty strongly suggested it was Flake, Tannen, and one other.
Okay. Because I knew, like, it's funny because when this whole thing was in its infancy, was Pro Tour 1 in New Jersey. And I believe it was Pro Tour 1. It might have actually been earlier than that. But the first person that we talked to for doing coverage was actually Tannen.
Yeah, no, it was. I was just talking to Keith about this when we were in Chicago. I was laughing about how the chain of events went because
he's the only person that hasn't covered yet.
Jacob was like, hey man, like it was a long time ago, and my memory's hazy. Like, how did we even connect with you again? Because he was,
Mhm.
just reminiscing, and I was like, well, it's a funny story. You guys had talked to Tannen about doing coverage, and he thought he was going to have to do coverage alone, and we were just hanging out in Discord one night, and I said, wait, where's this event at? And he said, well, it's down in Ohio. And I told Tannen in the Discord call, I said, hey man, like, if you're afraid you're going to do this alone, just let me know when it is. I will literally drive down and do it with you. And
Yeah.
he was like, all right, yeah, cool. And that was just because I was like excited to hang out with Tannen again, kind of the same thing. And then he came back to me. He's like, yeah, I talked to them and like, they're okay with bringing you on. And that's not even what I had asked. I was just like,
No, you're just gonna
hey,
drive down.
I'll just drive down and do it with you so that you're not, solo or whatever. And then Tannen, so like, for those
And
of
then
you
he
who don't
no-shows
know,
the fucking event.
no. Tannen actually got COVID is what happened. So
Yeah.
if you're wondering why like he wasn't on that first one, even though he was the first one approached, is because Tannen had a very untimely bout with COVID. But yeah, like that's how I got involved. Was I was just like, oh man, like if you're afraid you'll do it alone, like I'll just drive down and be a homie.
It's funny because that was the first one. The second one, Tannen was supposed to be on, and his flights got fucked. Like
Yeah.
it's been. I think Tannen is maybe snake bit for doing these events, and that he will always be featured and never make it. We're gonna keep kind of blowing through this event. There is a battle hard in Hong Kong. That's Blitz, which
I love Blitz if you're listening from Hong Kong, and I love to do commentary. So if you need English commentary, I have a passport ready to go.
we do actually have listeners in Hong Kong. That is a thing.
Talk to whoever's running your events if you're there in Hong Kong, and
Yep.
get me out. I will be there.
MinMax has Chicago, which we talked about, which is classic constructed, and they also have Atlanta, which is classic constructed. I will potentially try to do Chicago. There's no fucking way I'm going to try to do Atlanta. I believe that's the same weekend. It's either that one or the one after that. A buddy of mine's getting married in New Orleans, and so I'll be there.
Atlanta is MinMax again, right?
Yep, Atlanta's MinMax.
All right, so I will do that one if they need somebody for coverage, but otherwise, I will likely skip that one just because. Well, I mean, flights to Atlanta aren't that bad, but
no, because it's a hub.
Yeah. Well, and especially because like Detroit's my closest airport, and they're also a big Delta hub. So like Detroit to Atlanta is
$120 round trip.
Yeah.
Then there is Columbus again on Labor Day weekend, which is actually quite nice for the Americans here. And that one is classic constructed well. Again, SCG Con. Don't love it.
Yeah.
But I hate the drive to Central Ohio. I fucking hate the drive to Central Ohio. One more time for those listening at home, fuck the drive to Central Ohio. I'll probably drive to this one. But it's just unpleasant. I mean, and Columbus's airport's not quite big enough for the shithole that is the Des Moines airport to go there in any sort of non-roundabout capacity. Like the last time I looked up flights there, it's about 9.5 hours to drive there. My total travel time with layovers and everything else and getting to the airport and stuff would have been like 11. So it's
well, so I'm in that problem where like it's like an hour and a half to 2 hours depending on traffic for me to drive to the Detroit airport, and then the flight to Columbus and whatever, and it's like 4 hours for me to drive to Columbus. So like there's no reason for me to
absolutely not. Yeah.
Never do that. But also long drives are hard for me because I fall asleep. So there's that sucks. And then the other thing, if you're not from the area, you may not know this. And I swear this isn't hyperbole, but if you're in Michigan and you're driving out of Michigan, the moment you hit the Michigan border, whether it's Ohio, whether it's Indiana, doesn't matter. You hit that border and every radio station converts to Jesus. Ooh. And I cannot explain the phenomenon any more than that. It's like you're listening to your rock or your pop, or it doesn't matter, right? Whatever is near the southern border, depending on which way you're going, you've got different options. And then you hit that border and you are listening to preaching like every three, you have to go like every fourth radio station is something not religious. I swear to God. So that is also frustrating for me because my car is old and I don't have like other options. Like I
Yeah,
can't
about to say, can I
Bluetooth
interest
in.
you in satellite radio?
So
Because
like
it
my
fixes
wife's
a
car
lot of
has it,
that.
but my car that I used for these doesn't have any of that. So I actually, this is how boomer I am. I actually take CDs and then I pop those in when I hit the border.
This motherfucker has a Nova. You're driving a fucking Nova. Uh, that's that. Okay, I'm surprised the 8-track still works. You fucking boomer.
No, I mean it's not. I learned how to drive stick shift in an old Geo Metro.
Oh, I learned how to drive stick shift in a Renault Fuego.
Oh,
Oh, so you had to import these fucking things, and a buddy of mine's dad would import these. He was the president of a bank. They were, and basically because they're notoriously easy to work on, but they broke down equal to the amount you had to work on them, and
right.
which makes sense, right? But they broke down a lot, but they were very easy to work on. But like they were all like intercooled turbos, so learning to drive a stick shift on something that has you blowing gears at a superhuman pace and try not to drop the tranny out of it was not easy. In
Yeah.
this case, that means transmission. That is not a slur in this case. I realize now that maybe I should have used that differently, but it's that's what I learned on. These were shit fucking cars, though. Oh my god, they were just shitty tiny hatchbacks made of like Bondo and
Yep.
a little bit of like fiberglass was what they felt like. They were light as fuck
So
and
I
they
was just
had
about to
no
say
handling.
for you Zoomers out there, the Geo Metro, if you're not familiar, was essentially a plastic go kart.
Uh-huh.
I wish I was making that up.
Nope.
They were road legal.
That's right. They had so Geo was a discount car brand, and they, I believe, made by General Motors, but the Geo Metro was a tiny as fuck, like think of a Volkswagen Bug but less roomy, and that was basically a Geo
I
Metro. Then
I
there was
went from a Geo Metro to a Cleveland, excuse me, not Cleveland, Chevrolet Cavalier. Sorry, that's why I thought
oh,
Cleveland. Yeah. So
you thought it was huge.
I thought it was huge, right?
Yeah,
I
and that
literally
is
I went
nothing.
to a 2-door Cavalier and I was like, oh, I have so much space.
Yep. And then the next one in the Geo list was the Geo Storm. This was their attempt at a sports car. Let me tell you, not very sporty. And we used to try to take dips with that thing to see if we could get all four off the ground. We would just bottom the car out and then have to replace the oil pan. And then the next one was the Geo Tracker, which was a Jeep knockoff but less safe. Let me repeat that. It was a Jeep that was less
Less
safe.
safe.
We would try to hit hills and shit with this thing to get all four off the ground, which we could do on a regular basis because they were too light. The wheelbases were super narrow, and any wind gust made you feel like you're going to be in the ditch upside down right now. They were fucking awful, and every single one of these cars was an absolute death trap. And I rode or drove all of them. It was horrible. So every time that you're kind of like, oh, hamburgers, I just have this Malibu, go fuck yourself. Your Malibu is way better than the shit that I was tearing down. I had a fucking Dodge. What was the even thing? A Dodge, like a Lancer. It was such a piece of shit. The first car I ever owned that ever had anything going on was an 87 Mercury Cougar, and that thing was the fucking nuts. I love that car. If I could find it again, I would 100% buy it. That thing was amazing. Well, I think we got off the rails. We're talking about cars now. Oops.
Yeah, welcome to the Flesh and Car podcast.
So it's the fact now. I do have to put myself in the correction corner. Sadly, we have not had to bust out the corner. I don't think that we've been in the corner since Darick's took over.
No,
So
this is the first time.
first time. Yep. But I'm putting
And I'd
myself
like
in the
to
corner.
point out that I said the correct thing, and then you made me second guess myself.
I did. That's on me. I said I'm putting myself in the corner. I'm very clear. It's me in the corner, not you. It's me in the spotlight. I'm losing my religion. You're fine. But there are cold foils of all of the daggers and outsiders, reverse and not outside of Spider's Bite.
Yeah.
This is bad, because I owe my wallet.
Yeah, mine too.
I like my wallet. I would like it to have more money in it, but oops. So sorry about that for anybody that was listening that is a collector and thought that they were going to kind of get a moment to breathe. You're not. You're going to pay $40 for these daggers. I don't know that they're getting any cheaper than that. Like, quite honestly, I feel fine buying them at 40 a shot.
I was gonna say, like, my goal right now is to pick them up at like 40 as fast as possible, because I think that is the lowest they'll likely ever be. So
yeah, no, I agree. I don't think that they're going to. Like, I bought a forward orbitoclast this past week for 40 and felt like I was robbing a bank. Like,
yeah,
I don't think they're going to be any
somebody
cheaper.
who still needs a mask and black text and cold foil. Yeah, I don't want to be paying those prices. So
understandable. I wish that I had an extra of any of those, but I don't. I just
I'm gonna need to find a shroud too.
Shroud. Oh, redback. Ooh.
Yeah.
You need an extended arc.
I know. Yeah, that's gonna hurt me.
Man.
Yeah, I already said I was telling folks at the event in Chicago, I was like, this set is going to break me. Like, this is how Mara felt when the last set came out, when she was like, oh, I need all the dragons or whatever, and she went in on the Dromai. Like, this is where I am now as assassin. I'm like, I need all the things.
Yeah, that's understandable. That's rough. I mean,
now depending on what I settle on as my deck list, if I try to actually pull a Mara and I max rarity, I need to just tell you right now, I am not looking forward to the Marvels.
Nope.
If you're listening, as of today, earlier when I checked, Marvel Codex of Frailty is almost $400.
It's gone down. If that makes you feel any better.
No, it doesn't.
No?
No.
Okay. I mean, yeah, it's $400. Like, just straight up $400.
Yeah.
Codex of Bloodrot, I think, is like $225, and Inertia is like $240. Like, sure, but they're great. They're great looking. They look amazing. I just don't think that I'm going to try to. I guess I'm not sure. I'm getting a cold foil Plague Hive, so I might actually gun for a master set.
Oh man, I would really like a cold foil Plague Hive too.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, shout out to Zach Cash on this one. He's trading me so that my rainbow foil becomes a cold foil. But god damn it, it's a lot. But once you have that, it kind of starts to feel like maybe I should just be gunning for the master set, like cold foil of all the different equipment, and extended art shroud, extended art trench, which I already have the shroud, so that cuts it off. But then the Marvels,
yeah,
and so it's really tempting.
I mean,
since I'm already chasing down the daggers, then
I was just gonna say, like, my problem is, like, I already want one of each of the Marvels anyway, and because I'm the like assassin guy, I'm gonna want all of that. So I'm right there with you, right? I'm just I'm gonna be all in on this assassin thing, whether it's my Pummel Queen or Contractney or whatever.
Nope.
Yep.
Nope. I don't. Nope. Don't like that.
I know you don't.
Don't. Not at all. That is. That is D plus.
Contractney is what you get, or is how you get the pox. You Contractney. Contractney does sound like something you develop in puberty. I'm not gonna lie.
It also sounds kind of like just straight up sexually transmitted infection. Yeah, I got that.
Like
I got that.
The blood rot pox.
Right. I've never somehow, some way, I've dodged those my entire life. I'm not going to get into that though. That seems like a very bad idea. Tournament rules and policy update. They did a lot of work to clear up some verbiage. Deck, when it's referred to in tournament rules, is now referred to as card pool, so that makes more sense. Inventory, and this is kind of a big one, due to the the verbiage on concealed blade, as well as like things like flick knives and hurl, is your inventory is now your sideboard, and refers to all cards from your card pool that were not selected to start the game. So
Yeah.
you can't, if you throw a dagger or a dagger blows up to melting point or whatever, you can't get that specific one back. It's gone. But you can go get anything else that's in your inventory that is specified.
Yeah.
So
No, I really like this from a design standpoint for a number of reasons. One, designating these as different zones means that you can also design cards that hit different zones. So on the one hand, something like the concealed card where you're pulling it out from a new pocket, I really dig. I also like the idea, we kind of saw it with the shuriken or however you want to pronounce it.
shuriken.
Yeah. Sure, you can pronounce it however you want. Is my point.
Hadouken. Sure.
Yeah. My point is that like, because that has that specific item tag, and I had mentioned it when we were going through the reveals, like, hey, that opens up design space. So I love the idea of like, again, cards where you just like you pull that out of your cool bag of ninja tricks. But also I love the idea of designing a character in the future that has an arsenal. So think like somebody who literally like their thing is I'm going to switch weapons on the fly. Almost like if you played in the Diablo 4 beta, the way Barbarian was playing in that, right? Like, oh, in this moment, I'm, going to wield this thing and flip it out in and out. But I also like the idea of a future mechanologist that is like a scavenger, like scrap heap style thing where it's like you use weapons and they explode or whatever, and then you get them back from your discard pile because that's now a different spot from your inventory, right? Just overall, like, yes, this is just like tightening up the language, but I think that it's more important than it looks because from a design standpoint, there's a lot of flexibility they have now. I'm a big fan of everything they did.
Yeah, it makes a lot more sense. Just in a complete like base level way, the changes make sense. So no qualms whatsoever with what they changed there. They did address some things like shortcutting and reversing actions. They are very specific about talking about information gained in those sections. So I would encourage everybody to go read that all sections, but that section specifically about shortcuts and game information, because they are very detailed. One of the other things that is of note is that at any comp REL event or higher, deck lists are required. So even if you're doing a blitz skirmish, deck lists are required. If you're doing a sealed skirmish, deck lists are required. You have to register the card pool. So all of that is now in play. That's just new rules. So before, I don't think that was required, but they want to get people used to those procedures before they go to something like Worlds or Day One of Nats or anything or calling where that's required, so they're kind of used to it, and that's the way it should be. I mean, a training ground is best when it comes to those types of things. So yep, no problems there, no qualms there in my part. Anything to add to that, Darick?
So I didn't go through it like with the fine tooth comb, but there was I want to say the thing about the layout too, right?
Oh, that there is a default layout.
Yeah, and that, well, I think specifically the thing that stood out to me was that like you can get it cleared first by judges of the event, but I know that there are some players who are like left-handed and they try to put stuff on the left, and while I'm like fine with that, I think that this is kind of preemptively stopping people from putting things in confusing spots, because like if you've ever played with somebody who's a real like magic shark, for example, and there's people who put like lands both in front of and behind
Sure.
things and whatever, and they're like, well, it's all in front of me and blah blah blah. So I think that's what they were trying to combat. But that was the other thing that stood out to me, was that they were like, hey, by the way, there's like an actual layout, you should probably stick to it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good call out. That is somewhat important at the very least. But overall, just anything that's, if you're going to be going to any sort of tournament or anything like that, you should read all these updates as they come out, just because it's good policy to know what's going on. They did make some commoner changes as well. So in this one, kind of important that all equipment and heroes can now be rare. So rare token or common heroes, that opens up Kasai, Benji, KO, Cavdine if you really want to be that person. But it does not allow for things like Valda or Genis What You Need, any of the, or Icelander, any, well, you can still play
No,
Icelander
Icelander because she's a token, but you
yeah.
can't do like Emperor or Shiana, obviously.
Right. So it gives, and then all of your equipment can be rare as well. So not a limited number. All 11 slots can be rare. Still no Majestics, and 40 card deck is still your commons and tokens. That's it. So they just opened up the pool a little bit. I think that's fine. It's also interesting that they are just sort of accepting that commoner's real.
Yeah, that was the thing that stood out to me the most. And I know I said it to you before we went live, but I was like, wow, they actually like did a posting specifically about commoner. So I don't know if this means that they are exploring it like just more as a format to make things more new player friendly, or if they plan on doing events like that in the future. Because this obviously, in my mind anyway, when I looked at these changes, I didn't feel like these were necessary. Like, yeah, it opens up the card pool for equipment a bit, but I thought at first, like, at first glance, I was like, oh, well, they're just clearing up any confusion because you get cards like Spider's Bite that's technically a rare, but also a token now, right? Same thing with like your Icelanders, where it's like it's a token young hero in one set, but not in another. So like, what's the legality? And so I thought they were just kind of like cleaning that up, but the more I thought about it, I was like, no, this is interesting that they decided to spell it out. So I kind of hope we get more commoner support, so that they can start targeting like new players for skirmishes and stuff, right? I think that's actually long term, because skirmishes are supposed to be like that entry level, like first big competitive event for like new players. I'd love to see some commoner skirmishes personally.
Oh yeah, I think that'd be interesting. I think opening that up is definitely new player friendly, if nothing else, and I'm all about that. Listener questions, we only had one this week, and it's from Theodore Griswold Wizard. It is, do you feel like Azalea is in a place to win Pro Tour after seeing Brody Spurlock dismantle the champ Michael Hamilton in 2 of 2 games? All right, bro. I wouldn't call it a dismantling. And obviously Azalea is in a place to win the Pro Tour. I think
So
those are the two pieces of the question.
I'm going to answer it a different way. I think that any hero that Brody is piloting has a chance to win the Pro Tour.
Kind of the same with Michael Hamilton too.
Right,
So,
right, and that's not taking anything away, excuse me, from Michael Hamilton or anybody else. But I think that, obviously Azalea did really well, and there was 2 Azaleas in that top 8 in Chicago. But the other Azalea player is, got a lot of reps on
Levi
Azalea,
Roush, yeah.
right? But
the North American Azalea guy, yeah.
Flesh and Blood is one of those interesting things where, yes, there are definitely some heroes that I think perform better or worse than others in any given meta. We've had our Chains and our Starvos and our whatever, but you'll also notice that a lot of times those events are won or top aided or whatever by the same people too. And so, yes, you could say, hey, look, Azalea did really well, but you can also say, hey, look, Brody did really well. And then you're like, well, yeah, that tracks, right? That is just another data point on what we already knew. So if, more people of the caliber of Brody, doesn't even have to be Brody, just like of that caliber. And there's a lot of that, that caliber player, if Dagan decides to pick it up, if, Charles Dunn's like, hey, let's give this Azalea thing a try. Maybe Michael Hamilton tries it. I know at Chicago, like when I heard him talking, he was like, well, I tried to make Katsu work and then I couldn't. So I just went back to Icelander. But if he just refocuses and he decides like, hey, I lost to Azalea twice, this has legs, let's figure it out, then yeah, I think Michael Hamilton on Azalea could absolutely win the Pro Tour. So yes, I think Azalea is at least good enough now to be in the same running as many other heroes, and that it's really going to depend on pilots at this point.
Yeah, I would like to point out that in a Realm Tournament Invitational event, that was today. We're recording on Sunday, April 2nd. in Pittsburgh that in a top 8 with Charles Dunn and Pat Eschke on Oldham, it was a Kano that won.
Yeah, and I had just talked about.
We talked about it last week.
Yeah, Kano has the chance to surprise.
Don't forget about Dre, because if you do, you might get fucking blown up.
I didn't hear that the Kano won that. I knew he was in the top 8. I saw the list. I didn't know he won. I feel so vindicated now. This is why you should hire me for commentary. People in Hong Kong, okay? I actually know what I'm talking about, and I am a value add. So send me to Hong Kong.
I agree on the value add. We're good there. We're in the other part. Sure. We're gonna start kind of getting ready to go to the end of the show here. The merch store is still alive. It will be. Link is in the show notes. It's also in our Discord. If you want some quality fat merchandise in your life, I, as promised, did do some revamping of the Patreon. We did add some new tiers. These are with some help of Darth Prentice, our friend Greg, helping me think these things up. We added a $15 tier, which we've affectionately named Roast My Deck. So if you subscribe at this tier for 3 months, you get to submit a deck list to the show. And Darick and myself, and possibly a guest, will roast the ever-living fuck out of your deck. We will have zero problems.
You may need to sign a waiver before we do it, because I will not hold back.
No, no waivers. You understand what you're getting into. If you have a problem with it, you can send a message to Flesh and Pod Legal, which is still the trash can next to Jordan Kennedy's desk, a subsidiary of Black Hole Legal. And they will handle it from there, but we are limiting it to 2 submissions a year. So you can't just get, every week submitting a deck for us to roast, although that will be fun. And any patrons that are at a higher level will automatically get the benefit. So if you are subscribing to the Possum supporter level, I'm never changing that name, even though I fucking hate it. You already have access to this if you subscribe for 3 months or longer. So please just send in a deck list and let us fuck it up if you are one of our Possum supporters. The other one is Charger's Chamber of Charcoal. This is a $40 tier, and it's a VIP tier that includes being a guest on the show. So you do this for 3 months, 3 consecutive months, and you get to come on with us and fap in front of an audience, which I know is the dream of literally everybody that listens to this show. And so you get to be on with me and Charmer and potentially somebody else. We can do a 4-person booth potentially. We are going to limit this to 6 slots though, just because finding time to organize it, herding cats sucks, and I'm not a big fan of it. But also the newest playmat design is live. We went and already sent it out to the patrons, and will be live for. I will go ahead and post it in our Discord soon. If you do want to become a patron, you can always go to patreon.com/fleshandpod and check out all of the different levels there. The link is in the show notes, like everything else. I would shout out our producers right now, but my mouse died. And so I am doing everything right now with keyboard shortcuts. And while I'm very good at keyboard shortcuts, I ain't that good at keyboard shortcuts. So everybody that is a contributor, know you're loved. Thank you very much. Appreciate you. We will get your shout outs right the next time. As always, you can find us at FleshPod on Twitter. You can send us an email at fleshandpod@gmail.com. Please go to Apple Podcasts or Spotify and subscribe, 5 stars, yada, yada, yada. Please subscribe to our YouTube. Those links are in the show notes too. We do have one. We do post the show in there. It is an embarrassing low subscriber account based, with relevant or relative to our listens. So it'd be nice if you did, but I'm not going to make you do shit. That's not how I do things. Charger, where can they find you?
You can find me also on YouTube at Charmer, as well as on Twitch. And you should go subscribe to that so that we can continue to dwarf Flesh and Pod with my own personal statistics, because Logan loves it.
Yeah, it makes me so happy.
Yeah, I'm that charmer on most social medias. Twitter is the one I use most frequently, but I do post stuff to the other ones from time to time. Also, because your mouse wasn't working, I went ahead and I pulled it up. So I'd like to thank our associate producers, Charlatan, Char Grilled, Charisma, and Chardonnay, and our executive producers, Charity and Charter and Charcoal. And this one's one of my favorites, Chartreuse. I believe.
Chartreuse.
Yeah, Chartreuse. So anyway, we love you all.
Chartreuse.
Charades.
Charades.
Yeah, chakras.
Oh, chakras. Yes, also very good. So this is me trying to figure out the keyboard shortcut for ending something in Zencaster. This is actually quite difficult.
Well, you actually just you used the keyboard shortcut to give me the finger, so I'm just impressed.
That was because I have it macroed. That's a completely different thing. But thank you very much for listening at the very least, and we will see you all next week, or listen to, hopefully you listen to us, for God's sakes. Please say you do. But we will talk to you all next week. Bye.